So this chapter is entitled King Pururava Enchanted by Urvasi. So what I was thinking, because there's quite a few verses, so I'll just read the translation, then when we come to text number 36, we can go through in detail. Sukadeva Goswami continued, the best of human beings, Pururava, began freely enjoying the company of Urvasi, who engaged in sexual activities with him in many celestial places, such as Chaitrarata, Nandanandana Kanana, where the demigods enjoy. Urvasi's body was as fragrant as the saffron of a lotus. Being enlivened by the fragrance of her face and body, Pururava enjoyed her company for many days with great jubilation. Not seeing Urvasi in his assembly, the king of heaven, Lord Indra, said, without Urvasi, my assembly is no longer beautiful. Considering this, he requested the Gandharvas to bring her back to his heavenly planet. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. Text number 27. Thus the Gandharvas came to earth, and at midnight, when everything was dark, they appeared in the house of Pururava and stole the 2 lambs entrusted to the king by his wife Urvasi. Purport. This is a small purport, but I'll read on until text 36. The dead of night refers to midnight. The Mahanisha is described in this Smriti mantra. Mahanisha dvi gatiki ratrir madhyama yamyako. 12 o'clock, midnight, is called the dead of night. Text number 28. Urvasi treated the 2 lambs like her own sons. Therefore, when they were being taken by the Gandharvas and began crying, Urvasi heard them and rebuked her husband. Now I am being killed, she said, under the protection of an unworthy husband who is a coward and a eunuch, although he thinks himself a great hero. 29. Because I depended on him, the plunderers have deprived me of my 2 sons, the lambs, and therefore I am now lost. My husband lies down at night in fear, exactly like a woman, although he appears to be a man during the day. Number 30. I'm on a hot seat here, okay? Translation from 30. Pururava, stricken by the sharp words of Urvasi, like an elephant struck by its driver's pointed rod, became very angry. Not even dressing himself properly, he took a sword in hand and went out naked into the night to follow the Gandharvas who had stolen the lambs. 31. After giving up the 2 lambs, the Gandharvas shone brightly like lightning, thus illuminating the house of Pururava. Urvasi then saw her husband returning with the lambs in hand, but he was naked, and therefore she laughed. 32. No longer seeing Urvasi on his bed, Pururava was most aggrieved because of his great attraction for her. He was very much disturbed. Thus, lamenting, he began traveling about the earth like a madman. 33. Once during his travels all over the world, Pururava saw Urvasi accompanied by 5 companions on the bank of the Saraswati at Kurukshetra. With jubilation in his face, he then spoke to her in sweet words as follows. O my dear wife, O most cruel one, kindly stay, kindly stay. I know that I have never made you happy until now, but you should not give me up for that reason. This is not proper for you. Even if you have decided to give up my company, let us nonetheless talk for some time. 35. O goddess, now that you have refused me, my beautiful body will fall down here, and because it is unsuitable for your pleasure, it will be eaten by foxes and vultures. Text 36. So this is on the board today, so we'll read it word for word, and then we can chant. Urvasi uvacha ma mritya purusho si tvam ma sma tvadyur rika imi vapi sakyam na vai shridam rikanam hridayam yata Urvasi uvacha Mamritya purushosi tvam Masma tvajor vikaimi Papi sakyam navai shrinam Rikanam hridayam yata Urvasi uvacha Mamrita purushosi tvam Masma tvajor vikaimi Vapi sakyam navai shrinam Rikanam hridayam yata Urvasi uvacha Mamrita purushosi tvam Masma tvajor vikaimi Papi sakyam navai shrinam Rikanam hridayam yata Urvasi uvacha Urvasi uvacha Ladies, please. Urvasi uvacha Mamrita purushoti tvam Masma tvajir vikaimi Vikanam hridayam pita Urvasi vacha Mamritam purushoti tvam Rikanam hridayam tata Urvasi uvacha Mamitam purushosi tvam Masvatvadyor vikahim Vapi sakyam navashrinam Urvasi uvacha Urvasi said, Ma, do not. Nita, give up your wife. Purusha, male. Asi, Tvam, you. Masma, do not allow it. Tva, unto you. Ajyo, may eat. Rika, the foxes. Imi, these senses. Do not be under control of your senses. Kwapi, anywhere. Sakyam, friendship. Na, not. Vai, indeed. Shrinam, of a woman. Vikanam, of the foxes. Hridayam, the heart. Yata, as. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Urvasi said, "My dear king, you are a man, a hero. Don't be impatient and give up your life. Be sober and don't allow the senses to overcome you like foxes. Don't let the fox eat you. In other words, you should not be controlled by your senses. Rather, you should know that the heart of a woman is like that of a fox. There is no use making friendship with women." Please repeat. Urvasi said, "My dear king, you are a man, a hero. Don't be impatient and give up your life. Be sober and don't allow the senses to overcome you like foxes. Don't let the foxes eat you. In other words, you should not be controlled by your senses. Rather, you should know that the heart of a woman is like that of a fox. Rather, you should know, I'm repeating this, sorry, that the heart of a woman is like that of a fox. It wasn't deliberate, believe me. There is no making friendship with a woman. That was strange. Well, you get your turn, believe me. Oh. Chanakya Pandit, as advice, Vivasho Naiva Kartvaya Trisho Rajan Kulesho Cha. Never place your faith in a woman or politician. Unless elevated to spiritual Krishna consciousness, you have to listen very, very carefully to this because there's a lot in this. And normally what happens is when we read a purport, what Prabhupada is saying, you research in different scriptures to get the answers. But in this purport, you will notice, something is said and the answers are given in this purport. You don't have to do any research work. It's right here in this purport. So, never place your faith in a woman or politician unless elevated to Krishna consciousness. Everyone is conditioned and fallen. What to speak of a woman who are less intelligent than men? Women have been compared to Shudras and Vaishyas, Shriyo Vaishya Tata Sutro, or the spiritual platform. However, when one is elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness, whether one is a man, woman, Shudra, or whatever, everyone is equal. Otherwise, Urvasi, who was a woman herself and who knew the nature of a woman, said that a woman's heart is like that of a sly fox. If a man cannot control his senses, he becomes a victim of such sly foxes. But if one can control the senses, there is no chance of his being victimized by sly fox-like women. Chanakya Pandit has also advised that if one has a wife like a sly fox, he must immediately give up his life at home and go to the forest. Mata yasya grihi nasti bharya kapriya vadine aranya tena katan vayam yataranyam tata griyam. Chanakya Sloka 57. Krishna conscious grihastas must be very careful of the sly fox woman. If the wife at home is obedient and follows her husband in Krishna consciousness, the home is welcome. Otherwise, one should give up one's home and go to the forest. Itva patam griham andakopam vanam gato yat darim ashrita. Bhagavatam 755. One should go to the forest and take shelter of the lotus feet of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I read the purport of that, and Prabhupada says that 755, he says, going to the forest is going to Vrindavan, spending one's life in Vrindavan, basically, because forest is vana. Okay, so any questions? Like who was saying? Gurudas. So, in Srimad Bhagavatam 9:14, Prabhupada is saying, when a beautiful man and a woman unite together and embrace one another, and then within the three worlds, it's practically impossible to check, their relationship, and to not put sexual, the need for sexual relationship within the two. So, from time immemorial, this is going on. This attraction between man and woman has been going on for lifetime after lifetime. It's not a new thing. For us in the material world, we think it's a new thing. It's not a new thing. Because the living entity's nature is one to be happy, so he's looking for the maximum amount of enjoyment. So when in the material world they're seeking for this enjoyment, and the woman's nature is to attract the man, and this way cause a fall down. And that fall down, the man should learn from his mistakes. But as you're seeing now, in this chapter here, that even though Pururava so many times is experiencing this chastisement from his wife, and he still hasn't learned. They say three ways by which you learn: through hearing, seeing, and experiencing. But Pururava is experiencing the insults and everything from his wife, but he still hasn't learned. So we're saying, like, from 25 to 36, how the living entity is trying to enjoy. And how do they try to enjoy? They look for scenic places, they look for the sun, they look for the sea, they look everything that makes them enjoy the senses. They're looking for these places. You can see in the material world, it's right. Prabhupada didn't give any purpose for this. It's all there. It's all here. We're seeing it every day. Like, people work very hard. They have annual leave, like 28 days or something, working like, how many days? You take 28 days from 365, forgetting the weekends, and they probably have 1 month, and they're thinking, this 1 month, we need a break. And that break is going to a sunny place where there's sea, where there's, moonshine, sunshine, whatever the case, mountains, lakes. So it is natural what Pururava and Urvasi are doing. This union, they came together. And it's amazing how Urvasi was actually like a society girl in Indra's quarters. And normally in the assembly, when they have lots of parties, by the way, in the heavenly planets, and they have all these society girls. I don't know if any one of you read the introduction of this chapter. It's an amazing chapter. The things that go on in the heavenly planets is unbelievable. And you think, do I really want to go there? It's made these stories. It might sound offensive to the demigods, but these stories are put in the books for discussion. So when we discuss these stories, then we understand it's not worth it. You're worshipping Lord Shiva, you're worshipping, the demigods, 33 million demigods, and you have your favorite. And Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, to those that worship the demigods, I make their worship stronger. I strengthen their worship. And this way, when they strengthen their worship, then they get so enamored by a particular demigod. They give their body, mind, and soul, and then they attain that planet, their heavenly planets. But when they go to their heavenly planets, what happens? The enjoyment there is so intoxicating that they forget. They forget how they got there in the first place. And there's competition. And the competition there is so similar to the material world. You take my husband, or I take your wife, or I swap. The swapping goes on, stealing goes on, abduction goes on, everything. The example of Indra is given here. Lord Indra, his quarters, Urvasi was with Indra, and he felt very happy when she was in the assembly because she was absolutely beautiful. We talk about beauty in the material world, but the damsels of the heavenly planets, the Apsaras, the Gandharvikas, they had the curves in the right places. And they were like mesmerizing. They were mesmerizing. They had natural aroma coming from their bodies, like Urvasi. She had this, saffron, aroma coming from the body. She was absolutely stunning. Sometimes you might have some experience when you go to a party or you go, clubbing or whatever. I haven't been clubbing, but I hear all these things. And then two people may stand out in the crowd. They might see, Cupid shoots their arrow from one person to the other. And this is what happened in the assembly of Lord Indra. So Pururava was there, and in the distance was Urvasi, but somehow there was eye contact. And then when the eye contact was there, what's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita from contemplating on the senses and the sense-object acts? So he was thinking, Pururava was thinking, how nice it would be with Urvasi. So somehow, because there's an assembly, there's lots of things going on, and they came together and they sat. And there was no wasting time there. The first thing that Pururava said, sit next to me and, we can enjoy sexual pleasure. That was the first thing. It was very direct. In the material world, you take your time, maybe, to get around the person or talk, but this is like, straight. And because she was reciprocative, then things went on very fast. So this is when, they started enjoying going to all these caves, these mountains, all where the demigods were enjoying. They went to the place like this Chaitrarata, Nandanakanana. These are caves and beautiful, scenic places with mountains, rivers, and all that. They were enjoying in this way. So in the material world as well, to attract a man's attention, it's always a woman is being used, because a woman this is the nature of a woman to attract the opposite sex. And the highest pleasure in the spiritual world is this relationship of separation from Radha and Krishna. So that is like a perverted reflection in this material world. So this attraction, sometimes we may wonder why this material world is made in such a way. But we're reading in Krishna book, it explains that this material world has some attraction, because it's actually coming from Krishna's body, this material world. So, and because we part and parcel of Krishna, but that energy is separate from him. We're trying to enjoy separate from him, but that separate enjoyment is going to bring destruction to us. We know that from reading, but still it's very, very difficult to digest it. So here, there's advertising, big billboards advertising, glossy magazines with, very sparsely dressed women. And who was saying, Shakshi Gopal or Shriti Dam, when you come to the checkout at the supermarkets or any store, you have magazines right there, glaring at you with a naked woman or half-dressed woman. And then you see if anyone's not looking, you take that and you put it in your trolley or basket, turn the thing upside down. So these are the things that happen. And even like in advertising, you're advertising for perfumes and all that. So anything that happens in the heavenly planet, the spiritual world, is happening right here and now. But it's so perverted, it's so temporary, it's so, really obnoxious when you think of it, because there's no enjoyment there. That enjoyment is like licking the outside of the honey bottle. We always give this example that the real honey is inside the bottle. So in that way, on 26 and 27, it explained that, Indra, the Urvasi was such a big influence, so she was captivated. And then Lord Indra, with so many people there, so many society girls and everything, but he missed this one girl, Urvasi, that was there. That used to be, she was a society girl, but her beauty was beyond the others. So he missed her in the assembly, and for some reason he thought, no, there's something not quite right here, She's missing. It's not the same. The assembly, the party is not going well enough. So he sent Gandharvas to go. When Urvasi came down, she came down she had pet lambs, 2 pet lambs she had. And she was very attached to these lambs. You can see, like even in the material world, wherever you are, there is some attachment to something. If it's not gross things, it's subtle things. So there's always some attachment. But these attachments we're going to lose anyway, therefore temporarily, and then we're going to lose it. So she was very attached to these lambs, and they were like her 2 sons. So she brought these lambs with her. And their relationship, Pururava and Urvasi, in the beginning were very sweet. They enjoyed to the maximum. They went to places. So the real test of a relationship is one. They say you only know a person when you live with them, when you live together. So from now, the enjoyment, the novelty of the beginning of a relationship has come to the middle stage, where they are living as husband and wife together. And they were happy together until Lord Indra tried, caused some problems. So he sent the Apsaras, the Gandharvas, to come down to retrieve the lambs. But when they came to take the lambs up, they couldn't abduct her, so they thought, okay, if they can't get her, they will take her lambs. But when they were taking her lambs, the lambs began to cry because they were also attached to her. She was taking care of them very nicely. But when she took the human form, she told her husband, these are like my son, my children, and I am your wife, so you'll have to maintain all of us. You have to take care of us. So because the lambs were in the care of the husband, then he was asleep when the Gandharvas were taking this lamb away. And then she woke up because she heard the cries. And then the chastisement begins. Then she insults her husband. She says, what text was that? Oh, she calls him names, she insults him, and then she even calls him a eunuch. And she said, are you a... Oh, 1 minute. Just read it, because it's... Okay. Because I depended on him. Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Sitaram Lakshmana. This is text number 29. Because I depended on him, the plunderers have deprived me of my 2 sons, the lambs, and therefore I am now lost. My husband lies down at night in fear, exactly like a woman, although he appears to be a great man during the day. So she insults him here. Puruvara, stricken by the sharp words of Urvasi, like an elephant struck by its driver's pointed rod, became very angry, not even dressed himself properly, took the sword in hand, and went out naked into the night to follow Gandharvas who have stolen the lambs. So, anyway, you can see, Pururava was so enamored by his wife's association, by the attachment for his wife, even though from rising from his sleep, he wasn't even conscious of what he was doing. All he wanted to do was please his wife. And just by hearing his wife calling him, less of a man or a eunuch, he wanted to go and bring the lambs back. So his relationship would be re-established with his wife, and it would be sweet again, and he can enjoy. So he took his sword and he went out looking for the Gandharvas. Of course, he got the lambs back. But when he came to the door with the lambs, she stood there and she saw him. Before that, she asked him to, she gave a few rules to her husband. She said, okay, if you want us two to be together, the only time I want to see you naked is when there's a relationship, when there's a sexual intercourse, not at any other time. So, but fortunately for Pururava, he came there, he stood at the door, and she saw him naked. She wasn't even concerned about the lambs, but the principle of what she had said to him, that was more important. And Prabhupada explains that there is culture. A woman knows what the culture is, but still, because her nature is such that she's very vulnerable to the opposite sex. Therefore, she's called the fairest sex, and she always needs to be protected. So in this way, what was it I was saying? Can you recall where was I? He was standing at the door naked, and then she just left. She left him, and then he's crying. Now he's saying, he is so upset. Oh Goddess, now that you have refused me, my beautiful body will fall down here because it is unsuitable for your pleasure. He is pleading with her to stay behind, and but she just left. And he was going about like a madman everywhere. He was going all over the world like a madman. And just like one time he saw her at Kurukshetra as a beautiful woman, then he still went and he was begging her. Then another time, twice he saw her at Kurukshetra, and he's still begging her. He said, okay. She said, okay, only twice a year I can see, only twice a year. And that twice a year even stopped. So he was lamenting, and then he went on his way. But you can see how much problems there are. Yeah, there's one story about Indra, where he actually was he was so mesmerized by Tara, the wife of Brihaspati. And Brihaspati was meant to be the spiritual master of the demigods. So he just told the wife of Tara. Was it Soma? Soma, yeah. Oh yeah, the sun, the moon god, sorry. The moon god was, actually the moon god was he was ruling all the luminary planets, and he was in charge of all the drugs or herbs. And because he had so much power, then he got a little puffed up. So he was attracted by Tara, the wife of Brihaspati, who was a spiritual master. And it explains that there's 5 ways by which a person can be killed: by setting fire to a house, and this is one thing. When someone steals the wife of the spiritual master, they should be killed. But anyway, Lord Brahma came to the rescue there. So, but there was fighting going on for this woman. So you see, there's always like fights, even in the material world, over a woman. There's wars, Helen of Troy, Prabhupada explains about Cleopatra, like that. So there was this fight going on, and Lord Brahma somehow managed to retrieve Tara and return her back to Brihaspati. But still, with all that, somehow it happened that when she came back, she was pregnant. And it explains that even though this is the vulnerability of a woman, she's very, very easily swayed. Therefore, it's so important that women are not independent. According to Vedic literature, she should always be protected. She shouldn't even be going to work. Actually, in Vedic times, that the woman wouldn't perform any rituals. Now we are chanting, hearing. Prabhupada has been very, very kind, because in this age of Kali, it's very difficult to get any qualified man to take a woman back home, back to Godhead. So within our ISKCON society, Prabhupada has established that women can take first initiation, women can become a Brahmin, and he gave all these things so women can make progress as the same as men. So there's another story. I made a mistake. I said Lord Indra, but Lord Indra in another story impersonated himself. He disguised himself as Gautama Rishi. And Gautama Rishi actually won Ahalya, who was called Mana Putrini. She was actually created from Lord Brahma's mind. And he was saying that this girl is so beautiful, she needs to be with somebody. So he said, the person that goes round the three worlds, they would be presented with Ahalya. So Lord Indra was the first one to try to go through the three worlds. He managed to do it, but Gautama Rishi was performing some ritual. He was a little elderly, so he was performing oblations. And he was going around a Sarabi cow with a calf. And this is considered going around the three worlds. So, but when Indra came back, Lord Brahma handed over Ahalya to him. And Indra was very excited. But then Narada Muni intervened and he said, no, this is not right, because Gautama Rishi, he did it first. He was worshipping. So Ahalya was taken back from Lord Indra and presented to Gautama Rishi. So Gautama Rishi and Ahalya, they had a hermitage, and they were very nicely performing the Vedic rituals, sacrifices, and meditation, and she was serving him very nicely, Ahalya. But Indra, at the back of his mind, he was always hankering to be with Ahalya. And he was envious because, he got something and it was taken away from him. So he was plotting on how to enjoy Ahalya. So he actually disguised himself as Gautama Rishi. This is what happens in the heavenly planet. He disguised himself just to enjoy the wife of Gautama Rishi. So he comes and he disguises himself. And here again, you can see the vulnerability of a woman. So she saw Gautama Rishi and he went to the hermitage and they made love and they enjoyed. But before they did that, Ahalya could see that this wasn't her husband. This was another Gautama Rishi. But she still succumbed. Why? Because this is the nature of a woman. She needs to be protected. As soon as she's independent and she's not protective, then she falls prey to, the opponent. So in this way, she had to give in. But the husband, the real husband, Gautama Rishi, came back untimely, and he caught them. He caught them on the act. So she was cursed to become a stone. And he was cursed. It was a terrible curse he had. I don't want to go into detail. You can read it somewhere. But he had a very bad curse. And but the good thing for her was that she would, in Treta Yoga, Lord Ram would go past her and he would brush past, he would touch her with his feet and she would become liberated. So verse 32, how the attachment is directed away from Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam 7:15-43, it explains all the enemies of that brings a living entity down. And it explains here that one's conception is polluted by passion, ignorance, and leads to attachment, hostility, greed, lamentation, illusion, fear, madness, false prestige, insults, fault-finding, deception, envy, intolerance, passion, bewilderment, hunger, and sleep. All of these are enemies. One can also be polluted by goodness, by the mode of goodness, with pride, prestige, name, fame, adoration, honor, etc. So you can see in this 7:15-43, all the enemies here, like polluted by passion. Pururava was so passionate about Urvasi that it led him to do what he did. And ignorance, he was ignorant of the fact that he was a spirit soul and that Krishna was the ultimate enjoyer. And this attachment, he was attached, he was overly attached. All the enemies here was present in Pururava. So, then he was rejected by his wife, and then it was like chewing the chewed. Although he was experiencing unhappiness by a leaving and by a deserting him because of lambs, like in the material world, they have a divorce for the husband not washing the dishes, or the wife not washing the dishes, or someone not doing the hoover. This is divorce happening in the material world. So this Ahalaya, you can see, she left her husband because he didn't bring her back the lambs. So this is how, the vows of married life is not taken so seriously in this day and age. It's just like even our vows for Diksha or Shiksha or, Brahman, whatever. It's in Kali Yuga, it's very, very difficult to stick to vows and, take it to your heart that I vowed this and I have to stick to it. It's very difficult. So, due to the, attachment to these lambs, Urvasi walked out on her husband. And then her husband is calling her cruel. In the beginning, it was very, very sweet. He was praising her, oh, you look so beautiful, the fragrance is so nice, this and that. So when all that wear off, now he's saying, you're so cruel, be kind to me, be kind to me. And in the beginning, she called him all sorts of good names. She called him a hero and, of high birth and, glorifying him immensely. And now she's insulting him, calling him a half a man and a eunuch and, like that. So there's no peace in the material world. When we can't get something, then we become very angry, very agitated, very lusty. And when we can get something, then we're happy. So you can see Pururava, because he couldn't get Urvasi, then he became mad. He was roaming everywhere, the three worlds, looking for a happiness. And she felt sorry for him at one point. She said, why don't you go and worship the Gandharvas? Maybe they will help you. So he did worship the Gandharvas. And then the Gandharvas sent him another woman. And then he was so mesmerized by this attachment to Urvasi that he mistook this, what's she called? Anyway, that's not important. He mistook this person to be Urvasi. And they were enjoying for some time. And then he came to his senses. And then he realized, this is not Urvasi. So he left her. And so this is the nature. And then he was roaming around looking again. And he was performing some rituals, he was going into meditation, how he can get this woman again. But at the end, it's very, Krishna shows us that, it gives us an example that, if you perform some sacrifice, somehow you get some reward. So he was performing the sacrifice, and he saw two trees, and then he took the branch and he broke it in two, and somehow he made a fire, and that fire was seen to be his two sons, and it was like a sacrifice that he performed, and that sacrifice, that tree, that's a special tree from where these two fires come out, and ritual that he performed curbed his lust away. So his lust was, finished from that fire. So here you can see that Urvasi is actually giving. We may think, she is in a woman's body. At the same time, she's bringing down a woman. So how is this possible? But she's giving good advice to her husband. And she's condemning the nature of a woman because she has some culture, and she's calling them fox. And I was looking at the meaning of a fox. I thought, no, why is woman compared to fox? Let me look at the meaning in the dictionary. We know what a fox is, but why this, comparison? So the meaning of a fox is someone that is clever, is a crafty person, and to outwit or to baffle, a cunning, shrewd, conniving. And then sly, the meaning of sly was clever in concealing one's end or intentions, furtive, lacking in integrity, crafty, pretend to avoid notices. In spite of all this, there are some very powerful men and women. So in Srimad Bhagavatam 9:11-17, it explains that this attraction between man and woman are everywhere, and they cause one to become fearful, and this is even amongst the demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. What to speak of householders in the material world. This is going on. It's nothing that is unusual or, new. It's always going on. Husbands, I don't want to be too grumpy because we don't want to offend anyone. There's, so many things going on in the material world, like, husband swapping, wife swapping, and, stealing one husband, stealing one's wife, like that. So this is showing us what, all this is about. There's no juice there, there's no enjoyment. And a woman's role is to be chaste to the one husband. We take, the husband says, for better or for worse, he takes this vow. And the wife says, for better or for worse, he takes the husband. And it's the wife's duty and the husband's duty to protect each other. So, but 9, 10, 12, Bhagavatam, it explains, it shows the power of a chaste woman. A chaste woman, the example is given of Sita. Sita is chastity personified. She was so powerful that when she was claimed impure, a fire was created, and she went into the fire, and Maya Sita was burned, and Sita came out pure from that fire. And when she wanted to leave her body, the earth split in half for her to leave her body. She came from the earth. So the power of a woman, a chaste woman, is so, there's always a reward there, and she can help her husband if he's fallen. So further understanding is that a woman should always be protected no matter how powerful she is. As soon as she is unprotected, she'll be exploited by Rakshasas like Ravana. So you could see, even in Ravana's time, his wife was amazing. She was Mandodari. Ravana's wife, she gave a lot of advice. Even though Ravana, he had a wife, he had hundreds of other, suitors. But he wanted Sita, and his wife was giving him so much advice. She said, don't do this. Don't, you got so many women. Why go for Sita? If you try to get her, if you try to submit her, if you try to get her to submit to you, it's going to bring your own destruction. So she tried so many ways to, explain to him, but no. They say it's if someone doesn't hear, the disqualification of someone not following is through not hearing. So Duryodhana was the same. He couldn't hear. You see, he couldn't hear at all. So much advice was given. Even by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself gave him advice to not, be part of the war. But he didn't listen. So Ravana didn't listen to his wife. Then there's another example, Mandodari. Mandodari was the wife of Ravana. Another one is Draupadi. Draupadi as well. She was a very chaste woman. She had 5 husbands, and she was dedicated to serving all of them. And when she was being disrobed, Duryodhana promised her that, if you submit yourself, if you allow yourself to disrobe, I will free your husbands, and they can choose any amount of land they want. But no, she gave herself to her husband, and she stuck to that. And then there's another example, Sri Gandhari, Dhritarashtra's wife. She was so chaste, even though her husband was blind, she served him, and she blindfolded herself just to be inferior, just to make her husband, superior to herself. So, of course, we're talking about women. There are men as well that are very powerful when they adhere to the principle of celibacy. So we got here, I was looking up, and the greatness of Lord Ram. He made a vow. He took a vow of Eka Patni Vrat, to accept only one wife and have no other connection with any other woman. And it explains that he could have had hundreds of Sitas, but he took this vow and he stuck to it. Sita was gone, and then he made different molds of Sita to, in the palace, so he can meditate on her, even though she was gone to the forest. And then there's the story about, wow, it's late. I didn't even look at the time. It's 22. I'll just tell this one story about Markandeya Rishi was another person that was very, very powerful in his vrat, in his vow. He was celibate. And then Indra again wanted to, disturb his meditation because he was fearful that Markandeya might take his position. So he sent damsels, apsaras, and, to agitate his mind. But he wasn't. He was so fixed. And then the Lord personally came to ask him what boon he wants. So in this way, it's so important that women, the men control the senses and, follow the path of devotional service as it's in the scriptures, and the woman that don't become independent and always be protected and understand that as soon as there's some kind of independence, then they become exploited. And we shouldn't think that, she's a man, she's a woman, because all the men that are here were women in their last life. Because according to Bhagavad Gita, whatever you think of at the time of death, that you become. So previously, all the men were women in their last life. So they were so attached to a man, so now they took birth as a as a man. So and all the women in the previous birth were attached to a man. I mean, they were men in the previous life, and they were so attached to a woman that they have to take this birth as a woman. So this, Prabhupada said that as long as we think we man, we woman, we American, we black, we white, then this is on the bodily platform, and we're never going to go back home, back to Godhead. So we are all spirit souls, and there's no, especially in Krishna consciousness, in the temple, whatever, there shouldn't be any discrimination between men and women, and the woman should always be humble, meek. They should be given the services of sewing, decorations in the altar, and cleaning, things like that. And if they're husband and wife, then if there's time, they should go on Sankirtan and do book distribution, husband and wife. So in this way, it's peaceful. Yeah. And there's no time. But Srila Prabhupada, if you read Srila Prabhupada Shikshamrita, he says, now I see in our society that the girls are more intelligent than the boys. This you can read. I'm not saying it. He says in Shikshamrita. And then he said, woman by nature is endowed with many artistic tendencies, and from the Vedic age, we can see that how the girls were highly qualified in 64 arts, and this is coming from Radharani. So wives should go out, he says, with their husbands. And he said if the married woman is worried about the husband taking sannyas, and she doesn't want him to take sannyas, and he said it's guaranteed that he wouldn't give the husband sannyas. He says Krishna consciousness can happen at home between husband and wife if they follow the process. You don't have to take sannyas. So he called them my Grihastha Brahmacharis. Prabhupada would call them Grihastha Brahmacharis. Any question? I know it's late, but this is very important subject. Everyone should understand. Prabhupada he categorized the materialists separate from devotees, Krishna consciousness. If you read Shikshamrita, it tells very clearly, he says, I don't want any discrimination. Why are you saying women are in the temple? These women have come to me for shelter. They want to practice Krishna consciousness. They are spirit souls. So why not, embrace the woman in the temple? So as long as you think about, I'm a man, she's a woman, she's agitating me, go live in the forest. There's no place for you yet. Go live in the forest. So, sorry. Any questions?